Welcome everyone back to Coffee and Consoles. I'm Jeff, and this particular session we're going to focus on some new, some old, more new than old. The new being the current state of S4, S6 software, which is 22.12 and beyond, right? I'm actually running 22.12.1, which is really mostly some maintenance, bug fix types of stuff. So that's what we're going to do. So as always, if you have questions, please, drop them in the chat. That's the best place to start. And then, the guys, Gil is on as well as Robert. It will engage you from there. And then if there's a larger conversation, which we love to have, Gil or Robert will kind of tee it up, and then we can chat in more detail about workflows or ideas or why doesn't it do this and that type of thing. So yeah, we appreciate those conversations too. So let's jump in. I'm not going to spend too much time in Keynote, but I did want to kind of just set up all the new stuff before we go to the practical. So I think that would be useful just to kind of resonate and what's in there, what's changed, and that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start in Keynote, and we're going to start and take a look at some new concepts that I think are really fantastic. There's some great stuff in here. And a lot of this is about customization. What is that? It's really about making what you already have work better for the way you work every day. Are you mixing? Are you tracking? Are you composing? Are you doing MIDI composition? Whatever you're doing, there's a lot of stuff in here in this specific release that you will take it. If you take advantage of, you will love, because it will make it easier for you to operate the console. So the first one is Channelstrip keys. Basically what this is, it is a new kind of a dedicated layer of new soft keys, separate from your existing app set. If you've done a lot of customization and set up your soft keys on the transport or the automation module, master module, you don't have to worry about this kind of affecting that. This is separate. And what this affects is all of those switches right around the scribble strips or the OLEDs on the strips on your S4 or S6. Why is this cool? Well, basically because unless you're recording all day, which some people don't do, some people mix all day, those switches, if you look right in front of your console, if you're sitting there, you see input, you see record, you see select, swap. Some people are not recording, right? They're mixing all day. So wouldn't it be great if you could change those to take advantage of what you're doing all day? And there's a bunch of new features in here we'll look at as well, including copy paste plugin settings, which people have been asking for quite a while. The other really powerful part about this is that they're unique for the track type. So if I have a folder track, and this is the way I've set it up, again, we'll look at this, but you can set it up however you want. I want the most immediate, precise, fast way to get something quickly. And so my folder tracks, I've set up so that I can jump into a zone left, jump into a zone right, open or close a folder, because I'm using folder structures, as you'll see, and then I can select. And that's what's on the top layer. You actually get 3 layers. So don't fear if you want to put copy paste plugin setting, for example, for a routing folder, you can do that. Maybe it's just on a nested layer. And we'll look at that type of thing. So very, very cool. And then you see on my audio tracks, I have select, swap, add to layout, and copy. Those 2 at the bottom are new, which we'll look at. It's a quick way to add to a layout without going to the track page, track matrix page, and then copy paste plugin setting, which I think everybody will take advantage of. Everybody will love. It's a great, very useful. So hand in hand with the concept of the channel strip key is the display track type. These, to me, these are like, peanut butter and jelly, where you get to pick how on your display modules you want a certain track type to look. I want my basic folders to look like that, which is kind of which is basically kind of meters and waveforms, right? And that gives you that kind of thumbnail overview of, I can see what those units are. Again, whether you're doing, strings and drums and bass, or you're doing dialogue, music effects and backgrounds and Foley, it doesn't matter. You have food groups, you have elements, and you want to see those. So this is cool because every track type now can have a specific display preset. And we're going to look at this. I think it's really, you'll benefit dramatically. You can see I've just set up some things in my realm, but you can certainly take advantage of this and figure out the best way you want to see auxes. You want to see submasters and masters and MIDI and things like that. And you can actually assign these, and then you can change them on the fly, which we're going to look at, which is this thing called the global display view. And that thing is one of the myriad of new feature functions that can be assigned to the channel strip keys we just talked about. Okay, So these are the two kind of big concepts that we're going to look at as we kind of dig in. The channel strip key and the display track type, they're both really powerful, really useful. Again, channel strip keys, don't worry about having to throw away your existing app set, which people have really kind of dialed in. They love. It's separate. It's a separate thing. You can import it, you can export it. The cool thing is, hey, if you're mostly mixing and one day you're tracking, all you got to do is click import and hey, here's my tracking channel strip keys. Boom. I've got, input, record, DSP mode, whatever, swap layers. And I've got it set up in a totally different way to track. And then tomorrow I'm going back to mixing. Great, boom, there's my default. And again, as I just showed you, I've got, spills and copy pastes and add to layouts and things like that. So it's really slick. It's a simple import export capability. And then you can also optionally have this thing, load with the session or the title. That it can follow automatically in your Pro Tools session with the auto load data, which we'll look at. There's a small list of, well, that's actually the complete list. That's the list of some of the options that can be assigned to those switches, which we're going to do. And there's a lot of great stuff in there. And there's some things that if you haven't seen this release, you haven't seen yet, which we'll take a look at. Okay. We already said, yes, channel strip keys can be global, which means that input and record that you see at the bottom of every strip, if you're not doing that, you change all your globals. You start there and then you say, okay, I'm going to make some tweaks for the aux or for the folder track. And you can see right there what the association is for that touched switch for every type of track. Okay, that's what that shows. The default is record, but you know what? For an aux or a master, I want that to be copy plugin, and that's what that's showing. Okay, so that's a big concept. And then nested in that same conversation, there's special behaviors for the auto switches. So the trim mode and the automation cycle, right, which you can see right there, I'm pushing it with the little white finger. They are separate, and what that is, you can't assign the other functions we just described there. But you can now completely choose what you want, what you don't want for automation modes on cycle and the order, right? So I've set it up, touch latch first, then latch, then touch, or whatever. And then also you get to have you can have second functions where maybe just occasionally I use write, whatever. I can actually have that engaged by using for example, attention and then the automation cycle button, which is cool. You get to dial this in exactly the way you want it to behave. And this is also saved with the channel strip keys. We'll look at this as well, okay? Some small stuff, some minor stuff, but nice additions that we'll look at with regard to gestures on the touch screen of the Panner interface. This also applies to some of our, to Avid control as well. But we're going to look at just being able to adjust the height, the Z, by pinching or spreading, and then moving the room, and just additional functions that you may not be aware of that are in there when you're doing certainly immersive panning directly from the center section. Okay, we're going to look at. I'm showing a lot of new stuff, but I also want to show taking advantage of customization. And the concept, which I think is really important, of not just having static settings. I know the preferences can be daunting, but I want to show you some ideas so that you can on the fly change the preferences to give you more possibilities to better manage your environment. Okay, we'll just set it up that way. But basically the idea of dynamic preferences, which I think can really give you a lot of options as to how you're controlling a thing, whether it's a pan or a send or a plugin or a noise reduction, whatever. It's going to give you a lot of options. Okay, and we're going to assign that via soft keys to some sections on the console. I think in my case, I've really kind of favored the numpad, which we talked about that a little bit, and I've kind of appropriated some other people's ideas too. But it's great. There's some good things to explore in there. Okay, we'll look at navigation. There's some very small things in here, but you'll like them because they're very immediate and very powerful. For example, just pressing a select on the desk or pressing an attention on the desk to immediately go to a track in your Pro Tools edit window or mix window, okay? And that's kind of hand in hand with what you can see there, that preference which says edit window follows selection. Mix window follows selection. And then we'll look at some preferences on the S6 as well, or S4, that will facilitate that, right? Find a track, move to a track, justify the Pro Tools interface, just kind of making that stuff more efficient, okay? We will do a little bit of craziness because we have to, a little bit of harebrain, and just take advantage of some exploded on attention zones, which I think is really great. Again, this is kind of my approach of customization and just having incredible amounts of control that can be engaged immediately. I don't have a huge console. I have 16 faders on my S6, options on the left here, center section. And so it's really about doing more with what you have, right? It's really taking advantage of making what you have go further. And we're gonna look at some customization, some options for controlling plugins and sends and pans from knobs, from faders for on attention. On attention means the track that's been focused or attentioned on the desk. I want everything I can get immediately so I can do really cool static or dynamic moves. And that's what that's about, okay? So we'll get into that. I know that's hard to kind of see exactly what I'm doing, but we're gonna do it live. Copy paste plugin setting, we're gonna look at that very soon when we get into the practical, but it's super useful. Everybody will use it. It's great, and it's very simple. As long as you've provided yourself with Channelstrip keys, that function, that button, right, to be able to turn it on, I'm going to show you how you can take advantage of it, and you will use it because it's fantastic. There's also some new ways to manage windows, which you may not be aware of, that's a little bit different, that has hit with these versions. Again, we're running Pro Tools 2212, native Silicon on my Mac Studio. Fantastic performance in combination with EUCON 2212 or forward. I'm running 2212.1. We have a small S6, and you're going to see some big improvements also, not just in Pro Tools, but actually on the console and the behavior of banking and sessions opening and closing, and some of that is the improvements with that code base, right, with native Silicon. So we're super excited about that. We'll talk more about that. There are some new automation capabilities under the hood that you're going to love. And one of those is called auto takeover. And this is really very, very close to how this behaved on the System 5, Euphonic System 5. Basically, in a nutshell, we're going to look at this, but in a nutshell, it allows you, the mixer, to determine the speed at which you can get out of automation, right? Either very fast, very slow. Obviously, if you're letting go of a fader in touch, or if you're auto matching with auto match switch, you have a fixed auto match time. This now gives you another value to either quickly get out on some channels, faders, or slowly get out and merge with the existing automation breakpoints, okay? Which is great. Everybody will, I think you'll really take advantage of this as well. So that's what that is. Almost there. Second function. So I know we always talk about mapping, custom knobs, custom faders, all this stuff, but it's great and it's powerful. And this version of EUCON of S4, S6 adds yet another set of tools to map every aspect of the tools that you use onto second functions, and then also to be able to take advantage of now of titles, right? So I can quickly on the master module load an XML and completely change my layout for Channelstrip, right? Either because I want to use it a different way, or my mixer buddy here doesn't like the first map that I made. Oh, here's a second map, and I can do it immediately. And that's just by using an XML, which we'll look at. Okay, so that I think is great. So second functions, and that's what that little, if you look in the concentric circle, it kind of looks like a headphone or a C. That means, hey, there's another parameter underneath, right? The knob has a value, like for example, frequency. And if I press cell underneath that, now this turns into Q. That's a simple example of two things on one encoder that are toggled, and now everything can be toggled, which we're going to look at in some detail. Okay. That's it. That's everything we're going to do, and maybe a little bit more. But I wanted to start in the keynote because I really thought that it was. I really think that it is a good place to start, just to kind of give you an overview of what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to start, and I think we will let's do a little bit of navigation first, and a little bit of customization. explain the session, explain the folders, and again, different techniques, different ways. Let's just go to the surface page real quick. Here, I'm going to go to this view here. Let's go to, let's say, big MTM. Okay, let's start here. I'm going to go to my surface page, and just so you can see this first, so you can see what we have and how we're going to use it. Very simply, I have two spill zones, a left and a right. They're right here. I have this whole bucket that can be engaged for unattention, which we're going to do. We're going to look at, meaning unattention expand faders, unattention knobs, and then some other goodness we're going to look at. Okay, so that's kind of what we have here. I also want to draw your attention to, with this release, 2212.1, just a little kind of a public service announcement. If you actually try and configure the console, it's actually now going to say, you know what, it's really a good idea to disconnect all your workstations before you do that, because you could create some issues, some problems we've seen. So that's going to pop up, and it's really just going to save you a little bit. It's a helpful kind of notice that's going to pop up now with 22.12.1 and later. So the whole session that you're looking at is taking advantage of folders. Right, and you can see, and I'm going to blow this up in a second. You can actually see all the folders. We'll go to the big cam for a second. You can see all of my tracks. These are basic folders, and you can see on the display module just a bunch of kind of thumbnails, right? And what everything is they're just food groups. They're percussion, bass, keys, woodwinds, ambient mics, brass, etc. Right? That's what everything is right there. Now we're going to take advantage of channel strip keys. We're going to take advantage of spill zones. We're going to open and close folders, do all that kind of fun stuff. So the first thing I thought we would do is just show you a little bit of folder tweaking before we get into the channel strip keys, and a little bit of navigation. Okay, so let's go to, I'm going to go to this view because it's going to give us the master module on the right and kind of a pretty good size overview of the desk on the left. So let's just dive into the deep end real quick here. We're going to go to the settings in the soft keys, and I'm going to just jump over real quick to the transport. Okay, we're going to show kind of customization, and again, this is the way I've customized it. You get to do whatever you want to do, but I just want to show you some of the things I've done so that I'm not, so as we push the buttons, you know actually what's happening, right? I never use go to zero personally, so I've just kind of repurposed that button to be able to toggle siblings. And siblings are basically food groups, right? Bass, keys, guitars. And then likewise, I've also kind of repurposed this, if we look at the locates, I've repurposed the plus here to toggle children, okay? Now, yes, you can get these there's a folder, subfolder on the soft keys, you can get that as well. But I wanted to just kind of show you that before we go further. Now, why? Well, because let's say I want to see all the drums, right? What I could do is I could attention the drums, and then I can hit plus, and it's going to expand all the children out. And that means all the subfolders that are under the drums. Now, here's the neat thing. If you take a look now, and I know you don't have as great a resolution as I do, just kind of looking through the camera, but on the display modules, I have a drum basic folder, and then there's 3 different kits. Inside each kit, I can actually see all of the individual parts of the drums, right? Which I can see individual parts, and let's just go. Maybe we go to where the actual, some of the keyboards come in, etc. So that's kind of the first idea here, is to quickly expand into either one food group or to expand everything, right? So I'm gonna close that, hit plus again, close that. Likewise, I can say expand all siblings, and that's what this is, and that's going to open up all the top layers of all the food groups. So let's just bank through this so you can see this. All right, it expanded all the top levels of everything. Right, I can see the keys basic folder, and then all the keyboards pulled out. I can see the guitars, all the individual guitars. I can see the woodwinds, everything, right? So that's what that is. I'm going to hit bank home, and I'm going to hit collapse, or essentially toggle siblings, and boom, I'm back to my food groups of everything I immediately have. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now that we have that out of the way, let's go and look at channel strip keys. On the master module, we're going to go to soft keys, and And you're going to dive into the last thing in the list, which says channel strip keys. Now, I'm just going to touch one of the switches. We'll just touch this. Doesn't really matter. And as we described, I can assign things to all tracks, right? If you see all tracks input and record, not super interesting. But when this starts to get interesting is when we actually look at folders or auxes or VCAs. So check this out. Now, excuse me, that I've got that turned onto folders. Oh, wow. I've got select, I've got toggle folder, open, close. I've got go to zone left, go to zone right. And that is specific to folder tracks. So in my world, this is what I wanted. I wanted to quickly be able to look at the base, open up the base folder, and I look at the displays and say, oh, yeah, cool. I can see the base. There's 2 base unit tracks. I can see some functions, some panning, my waveform. That's great. That's just a one press efficiency, no modifiers. Let's close that up, right? Let's actually open up the brass and put it over here. I can just say dump that to the right spill zone. And I immediately have the brass in this spill zone. Meanwhile, my folders are over here. I can very obviously see on the displays that I'm looking at brass and I'm looking at food groups, okay? So this is where this starts to get really interesting. Now, if we go and look at the audio tracks, now, if I have a unit track, me personally, I want to add to layout, I want to swap, I want to take advantage of swap zones, swap layers, I want to copy paste plugin settings. And that's now what shows up on those same switches around the scribble if it's an audio track. Okay, really cool. Now let's take it one step further. I talked about the concept of the display track type, right? So let's pivot over to, just so you can kind of see how this function works. If you go to the end, the bottom of the user settings, there's this thing that says display track type. And what is this? Well, that is going to be able to be triggered or changed dynamically from a channel strip key. And I'll show you 2 different ways, right? So we're looking at our horns, right? Which we can see there. We'll just do a little bit of back play real quick. Okay, you can see the horns. That's all good. You know what? It'd be great if I actually had a different view for this. So what I can do is I can access that global meter function, which is a channel strip key. Now I've got 2 functions plus routing. And if I keep going through this, I am toggling all the views for the audio tracks, right? I'm changing, and you can see it over here on the display on the user settings. I get to choose what I want to see. I want to see, let's say I want waveform and I want 2 functions, and I can do that, and there's no routing, and that's great, right? And when I collapse that, I'm back to my other view for folders, and the view for folders is meters and waveforms. I can change these on the fly. If I want to look at an aux, what do I want the aux to look like? Well, let's go look. If I go spill some auxes over, hit play, I've got nice big meters, and I've got, function views of, I can see the processing that's on there, and I don't care about waveforms. I'm never going to use waveforms. It's an aux, right? That's the idea. Let's look at MIDI tracks, right? Let's say I think I put some stuff into the utility folder, and let's just maybe expand some of these guys right here. I'm just using spill zones, right, to access some of these tracks. Now I'm looking at MIDI tracks. And again, I don't like that view so much. Let's just cycle through a little bit and get a different representation of my MIDI data. And there, now I've got, some blocks or whatever I want to look at in a different perspective, right? So that is the idea. And that is that channel strip key, which is triggering the display track type. And I want to call this out because, here, let's just unspill out of there for a second. I want to call this out because it's really powerful. So we're back to our folders, right? And here, we'll just expand our bass real quick. We're expanding a couple bass tracks, okay? On those bass tracks, if I hold down the attention switch, take a look. If I hold down the attention switch, all those functions change. Just like if I hold down the menu switch, I can have totally different functions as well. There's the input and record that I'm not using personally because I'm mixing all the time, right? So you can hide them or put them away or put them somewhere else. But that global meter I've got using attention, right? And that's changing that display track type setting, okay? And hopefully that makes sense because I'm making a change for all audio tracks when I cycle this. That's what I'm doing, right? And I've got waveform and dual function. And then I'm back. All my go-to functions are right there on the top level, okay? So that's why this is really cool. It gives you so much power to control and to see all at the same time. I'm gonna just one button press, close my base, I'm back in, okay? Let's take advantage of some of the new stuff like copy paste plugin settings, show you how this works and what it does and that kind of thing, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. Let's just go to the track view for a second. We will, we'll just spill some tracks, okay? So I'm gonna, again, top level of my folder tracks for Channelstrip keys. If I press utility, the bottom left is gonna be spill left zone. That's what I have it set up to do. Now, I'm just gonna hit the all switch and we're gonna go to inserts. And that is just a very quick way to globally see top level inserts, okay, across the desk. That's what we're doing, okay? Now, here's the thing. Here's the only kind of caveat that's you have to understand. I favored the spill zones and the open close and this that stuff on my folder tracks. And so I, as a kind of a side thing for my routing folders, I have copy paste kind of nested underneath. For audio tracks and auxes, it's on the top level. For routing folders, I have it nested underneath. Let me just show you that real quick so that it's not super confusing. So if I go to a folder, right, I already told you that on the top level, I already explained exactly what's there. If we go to menu, hey, there's the copy paste and add to layout, right? That's what I chose. You can do whatever you want to do. I just want to set that up real quick so that you know what's there, okay? So here's what we're going to do. New functionality as well that you have to understand. If I press the cell switch on an insert, it's going to open the plugin window. If I press it again, it's going to close the plugin window. Same kind of conventions. If you hold down shift and you press the cell, it's going to open the plugin window and detarget it. Detargeting means if you open another window, that window's still on the desktop, okay? So the only thing to understand with this workflow is that if you go and start working on your channel strip, you're fine, meaning it's open and you've targeted it and you're working on it right now. And I'll move that out of the, we'll move this out of the way so you can see it a little bit better. We'll go back to, let's go back to our, yeah, that's a pretty good view. Let's do that. That's a good way to see this, okay? So it's over there now. So it brought up a expanded knob map, which we're gonna get into this in a little bit of detail here in a second, but I just wanted to show you, if you're controlling this, then it's open, the red bullseye is open, you're good to go. That's the first step for copy paste plugin setting. You don't have to do anything else, okay? And likewise, that LED under cell is lit orange, so you're good to go. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna copy it to a couple other locations. That's what we're gonna do. So all I've got to do is invoke copy. Again, I chose to put mine on the second layer. So I'm gonna hold menu, hit copy, it flashes. The source flashes also, the cell on the source flashes. I'm going to choose, this is a mono routing folder, stereo routing folder, 5.1 routing folder. I'm going to choose to copy it a couple places. So I'm going to say, press the cell on this stereo routing folder, third insert, press the cell on this 5.1 routing folder, okay? Now, when you're done, you take copy off, right? So press copy, you're out. Now check this out. We're going to go back in. That was the source. I did not copy here, right? That still has kind of a flat, nothing going on factory default. I did copy here. I did copy here. Now you might see a couple interesting things. There's the mono source. There's a stereo destination. There's a 5.1 destination. I can copy to multiple tracks, multiple insert locations on different tracks, multiple widths, as long as it's the same plugin. Very handy, right? So really cool. Let's just flatten this and let's get it back where we were. So I'm just going to push the insert. I'm going to show you some workflows here in a second with how to control channel strip in different ways. I'm going to push the insert. We're going to get back in, and I'm just going to hold down option. We're going to null this thing to death. Okay, my filters are still on, but I've basically nulled it, and that's kind of where I wanted to start. So that's the starting shape, right? Okay, I'm going to go back out. We're now starting from here, and we're going this way. So I'm going to, again, engage copy. Copy's engaged, that's flashing, good to go. Let's put this everywhere now, right? I want it to go here, I want it to go here, I want it to go here. And again, take copy off. And we should be good to go, right? There's where we started. We went to here, went to here, went to here, okay? Really cool, right? Very efficient, different widths, different locations. If you're doing automation, and you've got automation enabled on those things, it'll prime automation. You can actually start, dynamically automating from there. It does all of that stuff, which I think is really great. While we're in this mode, let's talk about control and controlling these in different ways, which I think is really powerful. So I want to show you a couple things I've set up, and it's this. We're going to kind of pivot into this concept of dynamic preferences, right? So settings. I'm doing everything from the locate section. So we're going to jump into locate, and again, you can put it wherever you want, but I just want to show you. I want to expose you to some ideas that I think is really useful. So I'm basically going to show you the 0 and the 1. The 0 says if I push an insert top level, it takes me into an expanded knob, which sometimes you want, sometimes you don't. If I press the dot, it's going to optionally toggle expand faders, right? So I've got 3 states. I've got inline, I've got knobs plus faders. And that's a quick way to allow myself to control things. So let's demonstrate this. Let's just say I want to do a really quick, just boost some high shelf on this thing, right? I can literally press 0. So that's turning off the expansion, and I push, and it gives me inline, right? Maybe it's a sans amp, maybe it's a trim, maybe it's a whatever, a simple plugin, and I just want to make some quick changes, and I can do that. And that is now inline, and that's how I control that. I toggle 0. Now I'm going to get my expand map, which we're going to look at here in a second. I'll show you some second functions and some new ideas. But this is cool because I've basically customized Channelstrip so that I've got, all the dynamics here, and then obviously all of the, the filters and everything you can imagine available, right? That's the second state. Let's go back out. Let's do one more. I'm going to press period. If I'm really diving in or doing some crazy filter thing or whatever, I want more control. I also want faders. I want to just dive into the expand faders. Now when I push in, I get everything. I get that same knob map, and I get, any kind of whatever I set up for my custom faders. So I've got 3 states. I've got simple inline, I've got expanded knobs, I've got expanded knobs plus faders, and I get to control when and how this happens. So personally, I think that's really great. I'm just leveraging preferences to be able to quickly make changes, right? I'm back into a normal state of just simple stuff. Let's just do, just do some basic things, and you've got that, okay? So that's pretty slick. Now, let's take it another step further here. If you have different people working on the console, or you're just like me and crazy and you want to have different maps, different times, you can create them, you can save them, you can recall them, and they can just be now on the master module, right? What do I mean by that? Well, let's go back in and say we're going to recall our map, and our map looks like this, and we've got dynamics here, right? And then the rest of this is really EQ. That's how I set it up, but you can do whatever you want. But I want to change this, and maybe I'm now really kind of just, I want an EQ on one page and a dynamics on the other page. So all I've got to do is make the map, which we'll do in a second, and then load it. And I'm leveraging titles to do that. So I'm just gonna, from the tracks page, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna load my alt. I made a modification of this existing map. Now, check this out. Basically, when I push in, I've got what's very similar to a magenta map, right? Which is, this is, I've got a band missing because there's no mid band in Channelstrip, and I've got, the filters again. And if I want everything about dynamics, I hit page, and compression, expansion, so threshold ratio attack release for compression, and then likewise I can look at the expander, right? Those are on separate rows, and that's just how I set it up. But it's paged. If I want to go back to everything unified in one view, I can go back and I can load. You're loading a different state, right? So I'm going to go back and load this guy, and I'm leveraging titles to do that. Okay, I like this because it's concise, it's unified, and everything is right here. Okay, so let's talk about second functions while we're doing this, because that can be very useful as well. So we're going to talk about second functions with regard to knobs and also faders. So what we want to do is I'm going to jump out of this, and I'm going to unspill, and let's look at our keyboards. Okay, now I'm not going to spill. I'm just going to open up the keyboard folder just by pressing that one switch. Very, very simple. And I've got some tracks that have some noise reduction on there, and I want to access that. So let's take a look. We're just going to do a local expansion, and then in a second we're going to do kind of a more advanced expansion. So local expansion, I want to push in on this MIDI noise reduction, and I also want the faders to come up because that's what we're going to do, right? I thought it would be cool if, again, period, push. I've got my bands, right? I've got my band enables. But I have a page right now to get to thresholds. Wouldn't it be cool if I just had thresholds right nested right underneath that? That was kind of the idea. So now what I'm getting to here is that now you have the concept of second functions, second layers, second parameters, peers. And how this works is, let's go do it. Let's jump out. I'm going to get out of here. And we're going to attention one of these tracks and look at the center section. And on the function scroller, you just want to make sure that you're on the right thing. I want to be on the correct plugin to adjust the map, right? So I'm going to hit custom, and it's saying, now this is a little tip here that you could be confused by. When you go into this mapping mode, if you've got a bigger console, you might be thinking, and maybe you've got a split, you got a normal bucket here, normal bucket here, and you're sitting over here. You might be like, well, how come this is not lit up? It's only lit up over here. It only lights up kind of one adjacent section to make the customization. That doesn't mean that you can't bring up that map once you finish it to here, any section on your desk. It's only going to kind of light up one area to make the map. Once the map is made, you're good. You can bring it up anywhere in any bucket, okay? Just a kind of an aside. So it's asking you to touch. I can touch process, I can touch knob, I can touch fader, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to drop something on top of a parameter that's already there. I want thresholds. So I'm just going to go threshold 1. Let's do threshold 1. And basically it says there's something there. Do you want to remove it or, overwrite it or make it secondary? I'm going to make it secondary. Okay. So now we're just going to hit done. Okay. We just did a couple really, really quick. And now if we actually go and push in on our noise reduction, we've got our bands, which we already have, the band enables, which we have, and then I can get to thresholds, right? Right underneath, right there, right? So those are second functions. The cell switch, whether it's a knob or a fader, is going to toggle to the next layer, right? And so you can have this on any location of any knob or any fader, right? And that is very, very powerful, and it can be part of your map. So that's just a little bit of an intro to some of the concepts with second functions. We'll come back to that in a second, but I kind of wanted to set up some different ideas, which I think are very, very powerful. Okay, how we doing? Let's go look at, let's look at some visual improvements really quick here. We'll go back over to this view. And you can probably already see kind of what's going on here. If we look at, let's go out of this view. We're gonna close, here, just real quick. I'm gonna hit drums and we're gonna collapse everything, right? And that's kind of what we did again. We just closed all of those food groups, and you can see from our tracks view, everything is closed, right? Okay, let's go back into brass for a second here. Open the brass. We'll just spill the brass, that's fine too. What I want to look at are, I want to look at the sends, right? Let's look at sends here. So what we're getting at now, and I'm going to attention one of these tracks, and we're going to look at the center section. What we're getting at here now is improving the way the tracks on the master module, on the touchscreen, the function scroller look, as well as how they look on the display modules, right? So what you're seeing is I can quickly see if a send has been bypassed or not, right? I've got a height verb, I've got a pinpoint verb and a spread verb. I can see immediately that those are enabled. I can also see that on the function block, right? Let's go over to inserts real quick, and I can see the same thing about, activated inserts, bypassed inserts, deactivated inserts, any of that. So it's a much better view visually to be able to see at a glance if you have things enabled or bypassed or not. Okay, so that's kind of the thing I wanted to call out real quick. Let's just dive in quick and show you some of the improvements with the panner. I'm going to expand. Let's just expand our bass tracks real quick here, and I'm going to open that folder and attention this guy real quick. And we're just going to go and grab this. We'll just jump into 3D mode. Okay. And so basically, we're just, X, Y, obviously. So 3-finger gesture, just grab the room and you can move the room, right? Pretty simple. Touch the dot, you can move the dot. Expand your fingers or compress your fingers and you're changing the Z, right? So those are a couple simple new gestures that you can see. Now, the other thing that's useful to understand is I'm looking at the center section here, and if I hit cell, that is a second function, right? That is, let's go back to the 2D view, it's easier to see. I'm now attenuating the side percentage, right? Or toggling back to center percentage, right? And you can actually see that it is a peer, it's got that same peer icon, that logo, to indicate that it's a peer function, okay? So I can adjust the Z, whether I'm in 2D mode or 3D mode, and I can quickly move the room, and that's very simple, okay? Now, the second functions also apply to panning, to sends, to heat, to anything. So let's just say we're not doing a plugin map, we're doing a pan map, okay? Just attention one of these other tracks here, and let's just go back to 2D mode real quick. Okay. Now, what happens if I jump into, and we'll just, what happens if we jump into let's just look at this in a different way. What happens if we jump into a pan map, right? So on this track, I'm going to go to pan, and you can kind of see that right there. I'm going to actually hit expand on this, okay? And now, if this is attentioned and I choose something else, I'm going to choose pan and I'm going to hit custom. It's going to immediately take you into faders. Why is it doing that? Because the only maps that you can create for non-plugins are faders, okay? And so if you want to have a concise control with multiple layers, multiple functions, you can do that. You can set that up for pans and sends. So just take a look at this, right? Here's my left, front, rear, on both the left and the right part of the stereo element, okay? I've actually set up height, right? And then this is the height on or off, right? Pretty cool. And then underneath here, second function, once again, we showed you how to map that. Here's all your auto Z's, right? So now you're in, now you're in sphere or wedge or whatever, right? And you're back, and then the height is turned on. So actually, let's go back into wedge. Yeah. And okay, so you can adjust the height manually. You can go into freeform. You can have multiple things layered underneath there. Okay, and I set this up so that you have everything in one zone. What does that mean? Well, it means I can quickly unlink these. Second page, and now I've got independent control of the left and right. Okay, it's just taking advantage of more information within this little zone. And again, here's the two options for the height modes for the right, height modes for the left. I can get to speak zone masks, whatever, right? Your center percentage, hide side, etc. Okay, so that's just a little bit about that. I could just null these, null everything, go back, link these back up, and now I should have, I'm back to kind of a stereo linking of that stuff. Okay, so that's one way to do multiple layers, custom mapping for things that are not plugins. Let's just jump out of this and we're gonna hit expand. Actually, no, we're in mapping mode, so we're just hit cancel. Same difference. Okay, so we'll get rid of that for a second. And here, let's turn off panning for right now, just so you never see that again. And I'm going to the preferences and I'm just saying only show me plugins is what I'm doing. Okay, So this might now be the time to open up my my crazy kind of zone here that I thought we would look at, which I think is pretty fun. What are we doing? Well, we're looking at the surface section. We're basically saying this whole bucket can on demand give me a whole bunch of cool control for the attention track. Okay, and how do we do that? Well, again, I've basically set up the, let's go back to the soft keys here. I've basically set up the locate to target any of the given inserts on the attention track or any of the given inserts on the attention knob or pan or sends. Any possible thing that you want to get here or here, you can immediately invoke. How does that work? Oh, and I want to immediately turn on everything. I want to turn on the attention knobs, attention faders, and I've just created a kind of a multiple commands, right? Everything for preferences, just so you know, is under surface. It's under the surface category, okay? And you can play with that. So let's take a look. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to attention one of our horn tracks, okay? And let's just take a look at inserts real quick. I just want to see what's there. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to attention one of our horns tracks, which we spilled, right? There it is. Boom. Center section is going to show you that's J, and that's all cool. That's fine, right? Okay. And let's just do this. I'm going to press 9. What is that doing? It's turning on this whole bucket as now it's not a traditional bucket. Now it is a special bucket. It's an attention bucket. Okay. That's what that is. So here's what we do. Right now you're looking at folders. I'm going to press 9. This whole bucket now becomes an on-demand bucket, okay? So let's just say I want EQ control. So I'm just gonna hit 1 and I'm gonna attention that. And I should have control of my fab filter. Now, here's the deal. Whatever the map that it's gonna invoke is the map you've created. And hopefully, you know, you're happy with what you've created, but you can certainly get to it. Up there, I've got panning, and I actually told it not to bring the window up, so you're not going to see the window, right? But you are going to see the parameter control, right, on the master module. Okay, great. Let's go to a totally different thing. Insert location 4 has bittersweet. Great, I want that 4, and then attention, and then I want to, you know, adjust, you know, cut off, you know, the amounts, whatever. It's bringing that up immediately. Let's say up there, I want my sends. I want to keep bittersweet, but I want to have some sends. I want to send into something. I can basically, you know, use these same switches, right, to get to sends. I'm going to re-attention, and now I can see all of my, and it's in the way. Actually, you can see part of it. We'll make a change here in a second, but I can see height verb. I can see pinpoint, all my different reverbs. I'm changing that on the fly to whatever I want. I'm changing this on the fly to whatever I want just by knowing the insert location, and boom, I've got, you know, I've got a tool. Go back to 1, right? Attention. This is going to keep sends until I tell it I want something else. At the point that I want pan, I can just revoke. I can bring pan, which is told you is 7, right? So it's going to keep this and it's going to bring pan back. Okay. I know we're diving in deep, but really kind of wanted to show you that this is now all this really powerful special zones, right, on demand. And I've set that up, and you can make that do whatever you want to do. When I'm done and I want to go back to a traditional bucket, it's 1 button. I press 9, I'm back, and you know, now we're opening up, you know, units that are underneath folder tracks. It's literally that simple, right? I've now completely turned the desk into a traditional desk again. Okay. One more thing that I should mention that's really important. I know we're running out of time, but we'll keep going. And again, if you have to drop off, don't worry about it. But I do want to show you, let's go over here. I do want to show you the map for Fab Filter and how cool that second function stuff is with regard to something that's a really powerful plugin like Pro Q3. So let's go and let's look at our inserts. Let's go into Pro Q3. Okay, it brought up a map. Obviously, I've done some tweaking here, fine, and I've set this up in a certain way. That is. So gain, frequency, Q, slope, and then if I push in, I actually have shapes, right? I can toggle shapes real quick. But here's where it gets cool, and it's maybe hard to see. And actually, I know I'm covering up that I'm covering that up real quick, but I'm going to get rid of the plugin interface in a second so you can see it better. If I press the cell under any of the knobs that are shown, I can get into dynamics, right? I can get into range. I can get into threshold. I can get into stereo placement, right, for MS or all of that. Just by pressing the cell switch, I've now, for every band, have a totally separate layer where I can control dynamics, right? So it's probably hard to read, but anything that that has that little C representation in my custom map, now I can control all the standard stuff, gain, frequency, Q, and then I just go into the cell mode, and now I have range, I have threshold, I have stereo placement, I have all that cool stuff, just nested under all the same band parameters. So it's very intuitive. And if you want to go a step further, you can then have, you know, like I just showed you, multiple versions of that thing that that you can bring back on the fly, right?
So
okay,
Jeff, we've got in the chat. Can you go back and kind of go over once again how you're doing the soft key setup with the numerics, how you're switching things? Just kind of go walk us through that one more time.
Yep. And actually, I've appropriated some of this from Euron, which I thought was really cool, and I've kind of taken it a little bit further. But yeah, absolutely, it's so let's go to settings. Let's go to soft keys. Okay, all of the preferences are going to not be a EUCON function; they're going to be a surface function. So the first simple idea that I did is, if you're familiar with these little switches right here, fader suspend, knob suspend. Those buttons are calling, they're under the attention track options, which you can find under surface. I'm just doing two of those at once. That's all that I'm doing. So there's the enable attention knobs, enable attention faders. Okay. And those are surface functions, and they're assigned, I assign them to 9. Okay. If we go to 7, that for me is pan. It says change the faders to look at pan. And that's, again, surface function, attention track options, expand fader, pan. If you go to 8, for me, it sends. I want sends on the faders. That's what that does. Okay, so that's 7, 8, 9. Now, all you got to know for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is their inserts. Insert X, insert 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Attention track options under surface, expand fader knob 1. Now, if you want to be even more clever, you can have 2 layers, right? You can have knobs, and you just map a modifier and faders, right? So that means I can put anything anywhere at any time. And hopefully that makes sense. And so to turn it on, you press 9. It's going to follow the attention track. So if you want to get back to bittersweet, that's 4. That's the 4th insert. You have to know your template, obviously, but you press 4 and you just re-attention, and now you're controlling that particular plugin, right? And again, up above that is the whatever function you've chosen, which in my case is left on pan until I modify that and make it be sends or something else. Let's make it be EQ. So I'm going to make that be EQ. We're going to re-go. And just to be clear, you're probably saying, why is that not magenta? Well, for something like Pro Q3, because it has so much goodness, you're really not doing yourself you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not using the teal map, because of all the good stuff in there, right? The good stuff being, you know, gain, frequency, Q, you know, all the dynamic stuff which we talked about, the range and the threshold, and then even isolate, right? I can actually go and I can enable the press the insert switch under the Q. That's an isolate. That'll solo that band, and you can only get to all that good stuff like dynamic EQ and isolate and stuff from the teal map. That's why I'm using the teal map. Okay, so that's the first thing that's important. When you're done and you want back to traditional, you press 9, right? And you press 9 and you're back, right? You're back into a normal view. So that's, hopefully that makes sense. You have to go in there and look at add a surface function somewhere and go look at all of the options. Basically, every preference, all these crazy amounts of preferences that you're going to find in here, they will all be available to be put on a switch to be toggled. And that's exactly what I was talking about when we were looking at when we're talking about modality, right? Changing the way things behave, right? So back in here, right? Back into our inserts, right? And in the concept of, you know, this pro compressor, let's just go and say, I just want to grab the threshold quickly, right? Boom, I'm grabbing the threshold. It's in line, right? We'll bring get the plugin window out of the way for a second here. And I'll actually, let's just here, this will help a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to manage all the windows and it's a little bit tricky with regard to the real estate, but I'm just gonna go and turn this off for now, that there's, so it's not going to, this is the preference that controls whether you see the plugin window or not. So what I want to do is just come back real quick to this, right? Because I think this is really, these are simple concepts, but are really very powerful. 0 and dot for me is, I just want to tweak the pro compressor. And here, we'll do this too, so that you can see it. You can see it here. Okay. I just want to tweak the pro compressor. I can push, and now I have access to the simple threshold ratio attack release, right? That's a very simple access. If I want more control, I can say, give me knobs, give me my expand knob map. Now when I push pro compressor, now I've got a lot more. I've got the ability to look at filters and the dry mix and all of that stuff, right? And then the third step for me is the period. And the period says, I want everything, right? When I push that thing, bring it up on the knobs, bring it up on the faders, right? That's the idea, right? And again, maybe you've got, hey, there's your dry mix, there's your gain makeup. Those are some cool things you can do using the second functions, right? Keep as much here as you can and take advantage of those second layers, which is, again, that what we looked at, those peer parameters. And that's the idea with that, okay? So that's kind of a little bit of that. Let's real quick look at some automation, because I think this is really, really powerful. We'll just go, oh, you know what, before we do that, I just want to show you some of those simple concepts about justification. It seems really simple and remedial, but it's really useful, right? This preferences mixing controllers edit window follows select. Why is that cool? Well, I'll show you. With Pro Tools open, okay? I'm gonna go and we're gonna press attention on percussion, and we'll just look at our tracks for a second. I'm gonna expand everything. Everything is expanded. If you look at the tracks, right, it just kind of expanded every element, okay? So, what if I wanted to quickly get to, some particular track, right? Maybe it's the first bass track. I can attention that, or I can select that. And if I press attention, boom, it gave me that immediately in the editor. Likewise, I want to go back and get to one of my first percussion tracks. I'm going to hit select. Boom, I've got that immediately, right? So not only can I attention and have control, and then, again, do some of the cool stuff we did with expand knobs, expand faders, but Pro Tools is going to follow exactly what I'm doing just by pressing select. And that's really a function of those preferences in Pro Tools to say, take me to that track immediately. And that is very, very useful. Okay. So with that said, we're going to collapse everything, right? Just hit my, basically attention, one of my top level food groups. And then that's siblings. It shrinks all the siblings down. And then we'll go into percussion. So I'm just going to hit open on percussion to expand this. Let's open on percussion. It expands that. Those tracks pop out. And we're going to do command control. We're going to touch some of these guys here. Okay. So I know we're running over. If you got to drop, you can certainly drop it. I'm going to keep going. What I want to show you is, I also want to show you the automation modes, right? So just real quick. Let's go to this and we'll come back to that. I know I'm jumping everywhere, but there's too much to show you in the time we have. So we're going to go back to soft keys, channel strip keys, but this time we're going to touch the A. The A is the cycle, and you get to pick how this shows up. And if you look at mine, I set touch latch to be first. Maybe I'm using touch latch all the time. Just set it to be first. If you never use it, untick it. If you hold down a modifier, maybe you want to, every once in a while, go to right. You can do that, right? And that's what that's doing, right? This is saved with your Channelstrip keys. And so that's really kind of handy. I wanted to set that up real quick, okay? Find a view, pick a view, any view. Okay, so I want to see these tracks again. Great, those tracks are there, they're justified, I can see them. If I press my automation button, what is it going to give me? Well, it's going to give me touch latch, because that's what I told it that I really wanted to do. I'm going to hit play. We're going to write some automation. I'm choosing to show automation breakpoints, right? And that's just command control, touch something, and then I'm in. Since the faders are in touch, I let go. I've got a pretty fast auto match time right now. Okay, it wrote some automation. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit using my wheel, just really quick there. Now, what is auto takeover? Well, auto takeover is, and here we're going to go into latch also just to kind of demonstrate something. I'm going to hit play. We're going to grab some stuff here. Take a look at the dancing, and this might be actually, it's probably hard to see. I'm going to blow this up in a second so you can see it better. Basically, you have underlying indication of where the breakpoints are. That's this. It repurposes the 3 LEDs, orange LEDs on the right side of the meter pipe, and it tells you, stop and undo that. It tells you what the underlying automation is. What if you want to get out of automation slower, right? That's where auto takeover comes over. So I play, and I start writing automation, right? And I want to kind of match back with the stream, but slower. I can hit the F. It goes fast, and then I can now slowly merge out of automation, right? That's what that did. Just undo that real quick, okay? If I want to match out faster, I can do that as well. So you hit play, grab some stuff. I can be in touch, I can be in latch, I can be in touch latch, whatever, but whether I am above or below doesn't matter. I just have to trigger the Fs, and then I can merge back with the stream, right? It's basically saying, get me ready for auto takeover. And all you've got to do at whatever speed you want is cross that threshold of that boundary of automation. Now that's just basic. You have to press the F switch while you're dynamically writing, and then you're ready to go. Okay. So also the ability to trigger it for everything. That's called global ATO. And again, you can set it as a soft key. I've stuck it on the locate switch, right, just to show you this real quick here. You can put it wherever you want it, but again, you can take advantage of this. And I'm going to go back to the transport. And if you look at the locate switch, global ATO, right? That's just saying trigger auto takeover for any track that might be writing. That's what that's doing. Okay. So let me demonstrate that. I'm writing, got X tracks that I'm working on, right? I can press that switch. It's going to fast flash everybody. And now I can merge out of automation, right? That's how that works. Okay. So it's just another way to control how slow or how fast you get out of automation. Obviously, if we're in latch and we're actively writing, I have one speed. That one speed is auto match. And that's right now it's set to a very fast auto match time and everything's out. But what if I want to go slower or faster? Well, that's where ATO, auto takeover, comes in, and it's pretty slick. It's very, very handy for that kind of use case. Okay. I want to look at a little bit of very quick. So let's go back to our 4th bucket here. And I'm going to close percussion. I'm going to close that. We just open that up. Okay. I want to show you a couple simple layout functions to be able to add to layout quickly. And there's 2 ways to do it. And I think it's pretty slick. So here's what we're going to do. Okay, so we're taking advantage of another Channelstrip key, right? Let's just back up. I know there's a million things I'm showing you in a short period of time. But if we look at audio tracks, right, we're going to go back to this function here, and we go to audio tracks. This right here, check this out. This says plus layout. What is this? Well, it says, hey, on the fly, I can just take a bunch of stuff, dump it in a layout, and it's really, really easy to do. And so that's what we're gonna take a look at real quick. So I'm gonna go to the drums, right? We did this before, but I'm gonna press drums. I'm gonna press attention on drums, and we're gonna hit plus. And plus is, again, it's expand children, right? I set it up that way, but I want to get a couple different bits from a couple of different kits, right? Some of the toms here, maybe some of the overs, whatever. And I can now quickly just say, add to layout, 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 whatever. Okay, I'm ticking the tracks that I want to dump into a layout quickly. Now, all I've got to do is on the tracks page, just hit assign, and it should automatically funnel whatever I've picked into that bucket, right? And so I've got tracks. You can see it actually preserves the swap layer, and it preserves the location. Okay, I'm going to show you a different way to do this, but I just wanted to show you two different ways. So I've got drums here, and I've got drums here, right? And again, obviously, you can go in here and you can clear strips and actually, I would delete strips if I wanted to make some hole, get rid of some holes. I could do that, and then I could store this, drop it in, and drums. Okay, so so that's one way to approach it. And then I could also add to another layer if I wanted to of the swap layer, but let's not get into that. Let's do a different use case here. Let's say I just want to simply jump to a certain track in the project. Okay, so let's hit plus to close all of our drums once again, and let's just say we're going to open up, let's say we're going to open up woods, and we're going to open up violins, okay? And I just want to grab some of these really quick and dump those into a layout. So what I can do is I can just select. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to select that. I'm holding down the select, grab some violins, and maybe I want the ambience folder as well, okay? I've just selected some tracks. On the tracks page at the very bottom, there's an assign switch. It's not the top assign, it's the lower assign. I'm going to press selected. And what it's going to do, it's going to take everything I've selected, which you can see, right? Some of the woodwinds and the violins, and I actually have an ambience folder as well. And it brought everything over. And now all I got to do is hit store and give it a name, and I've got it. Right. So there's a couple different ways to quickly add layouts. The add to layout channel strip key is going to preserve the absolute location of the strip that you take it from. Or if you just want to dump a bunch of things into a layout and have them kind of cascaded or kind of, remove all the gaps, you can just select them and then dump it into a layout. And now to get that back, right, I'll just put it over here. Let's just go to right zone layout. And then there they are, right? There's your violins, there's your woodwinds, there's your ambient. And obviously, since this is a folder, I can quickly jump into that. And then I've got all those ambient tracks that I can get to, okay? So quick ways to add to a layout, either from selected tracks or from anywhere on the desk, even in spill zones, you can do it as well. Let's just do one more, because I think that's actually kind of slick. So that layout, let's close that zone. Let's close everything. We'll close our woodwinds. We'll close our violins. Okay. And let's say we're going to get some effects returns, and we're going to get some, keyboards, right? So I'm just going to dump that into keyboards. Here, let's do it the other way. Let's actually go Atmos effects over here and keyboards over here. So I'm in spill zones, right? And right now, you don't normally go into a spill zone. You can't. And actually then work with layouts and modifying the layout. But this way you actually can. So I want some of these auto panners or these pinpoint verbs. So I'm going to tick that, add to layout, add to layout, add to layout. And then I want some of these keyboards. Maybe I just want the Rhodes and I want the Prophet. So I'm going to go add to layout, and then add the Prophet. Okay. Go over here and hit assign. And now whatever you've chosen is going to be in the layout. And all I've got to do is hit store and dump that, and effects, keys, whatever this happens to be, right? Now you've got that either one-to-one or in a spill zone. You can now reconstitute that. And then even, to even take advantage of swap layers, right? I could put that on a different layer, and that would be perfectly capable as well.
Yeah, so there's a question, can you copy from layer to layer in the same layout?
There's no copy. Yeah, that's a good question. And that's actually somebody actually asked about that not so long ago. It would be very useful to be able to say copy layer A to copy B. There's a preference which is not the same thing, but I will mention it under tracks, local options, which is insert, delete, assign modes, affect all swap layers. That's not the same thing. I know what he's asking. He's basically saying I want to take certain things and copy them from A to B or A to C. It's a really good idea. I'll add that as a feature. I'll propose that as a feature request. But that preference, this here is what I'm referring to. That is going to, if you make a deletion, for example, or an add on the top layer, it could add it to multiple layers at once or affect the delete on multiple layers. So yeah, it's a really good idea. But no, it doesn't do that right now. Okay. So let's just maybe wrap up here. I just want to just kind of reiterate a couple things. I know we did a million things at once, but the big concepts are channel strip keys. These are huge, right? This is really a big deal. Don't be afraid. The import, export, and factory down here are separate. Channel strip keys affect this, and they affect the automation. That's it. They do not affect all your app set, everything you've done, right? So if you go to, let's just go to master module here, right? And you touch and you see factory, import, and export. That is for the entire app set, everything that is not channel strip keys. So just wanted to reiterate that again, because it's really important. So do take advantage of this and customize this based on track type, because it is huge. Folders can change, right? VCAs can change, auxes can change. All those functions can be optimized based on the track type, just like the views can be optimized based on the track type. That's also really huge, right? You're looking at waveforms. You're right now looking at folder tracks as meters and waveforms, but they don't have to be that, right? They could be large waveforms, right? They could be whatever you want them to be, and they can be changed on the fly with that global meter preference. The other thing in here that's important is those channel strip keys are a data type now, right here in auto loads. I know auto load is, again, preferences are, can trip people up. There can be confusing, but this has been kind of restructured. And another really important thing to understand about this window is that this is only a filter for what it brings back. The console always saves everything, but if I don't want certain things to come back, I don't want the banking or lock strips or whatever, I can untick that. And when you open that Pro Tools session, for example, it's going to omit those things that you've unticked. Okay, that's the concept. You can't throw the data away, meaning, if you make the channel strip keys, it is there, right? And it can be exported, it can be imported, it can be reset. But this is saying bring them back with the session. So that's just wanted to kind of reiterate that, okay? Those are really important big concepts. And then one last thing we'll end on is, I know we did a lot of kind of crazy clever things with some of our customizations. Like if we go back and let's see, what do we do here? We went back to our locates. So we did some simple stuff with like the 0 and the 1, and that just changed how an insert was going to prepare the information to show inline, knob, or knob plus fader. Right. And then this concept, we talked about the kind of the exploded channel and all of that. Take advantage of modifying preferences on the fly. And just because it's set this way right now, doesn't mean you can't quickly make a change, right? And make a change to the banking, the paging, the justification, the orientation, do I want to expand faders? No, I don't. Now I do. And then I didn't. You can do all of that, even to the point of like, me, and I'm trying to wrestle the plugin window on top of the console. I could actually make a preference. If I was smart, I would actually have that, automatically, reconstitute that. I don't even know if maybe I did. I can't even remember anymore. So that when I go back in and we go back and look at our brass and go and push a Pro Q3. Oh yeah, actually. All right, let's close the window and see if I did do that. I can't remember now. Yeah, I did. I actually made it look at that. Look how cool that is. I made a preference so that I could change the behavior of if the plugin shows up or not, right? And so I did actually do that. But the point of this is just take advantage of changing the preferences when you need to change them, and don't just Don't just leave them one way and then just, and then just stop. There's a lot of really powerful ways to on the fly, toggle things. I think that's a really great concept for you to explore. So with that, we will wrap up. Any last questions, or are we good?
Yeah, I got a question. All right, I got a question for you. Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, with the copy and paste, when I create a new layout.
Yep.
I want to let's say I have a layout with only one layer, and then I want to throw it. I want to throw. Okay, so I open and I spill a folder, and let's say I want my first layer is basically what I do in rides, which could be a folder here, whatever, and it's a layout. And now I want to throw into the second layer. I want to throw my whole drum kit instead of making a layout of the whole drum kit. I want to take all my drums. How do I put it in the second layout? With the new system on the same layout that I was working on, just in a different layer.
So
create a situation where I want to create a second. Let's say I have four, I have 4 layers, and I only set up one, and I'll say, wow, I want the drums in the second layer.
Yep.
And I do that on the fly. I have to stop and go to the second layer and look for all the instruments and all that stuff. Can I open the drums folder and select all the drums, whether it's like kick folder, snare folder, toms folder, blah, 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 and shoot it to the top layer, next layer?
You can. Yeah, you can. So let me see if I can quickly demonstrate this. If we recall, let me recall something that's in here, and I've got various things in here. So what I would do is I would recall an existing layout, which you said you already have, but now you want to go to layer B. So the only thing you need to make sure is that you have this set up so that you have at least 2 swap layers, right? So this is, you're giving yourself the option. So what I would do is I would press your global swap. B is empty now, right? And so I would store over this thing that we were just doing, get out, and then I would basically say add to layout, add to layout, add to layout. I've already expanded the folder, so basic, you already see that, right? And then I should be able to hit assign, and that is on B. And so if I hit store, and I can now go back to A so that it stores with that, hit store, overwrite this, hit store.
Got it.
If I did this right, basically, I hit layout, I recall, I'm on A, I change to B, swap. There's all the new stuff, right? So that's how I would do it. You just have to remember that you have to leave that layout on the layer that you're gonna copy to, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
because
but now can I take all those and make them go from fader 1 to 8 or whatever it is? So they're not where they're original, where I spilled them.
Yeah, so you'd have to edit it. So it's open. All I would do is I would come in here and if you're in assign mode, you're just going to go delete strip, and I can close the gaps really quick.
And it doesn't do anything to the layer beneath.
It does not. It does not. So then I just hit store, and I'm going to store over what I have.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah. So that's B, right? There's A, right? They're 2 separate things. So they're separate. However many layers you want. Yeah, you can do that. Perfect. So this just allows you to not have to do this whole game of
the whole game of, so that's basically this. I was asking if you could copy one layer to the next, because a lot of times what I do, for instance, is I'll have one layer of everything that I always work on one big layer, which is my ride layer.
Yeah.
I have 32 faders. I just grab them. I do whatever I got to do, and I never have to go or move around. Okay. Yep. And then I'd walk one layer and I'd have it on sends, go to the next layer and have it on inserts. So I could pop the insert to just go back and forth on layers.
Sure.
So I could do it that way too. Okay, I got
it. You can totally do that. Yeah, exactly. And it's just giving you another faster way to add one or multiple tracks to a layout by taking advantage of this this function, which is right here, which is add to layout, which is in the list of options. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Did I hear a Collier?
You did. Hey, is auto takeover strictly an S6 function, or because I don't see it in Pro Tools prefs or anything, or is it just a function that's now there?
Yeah, it is an S4, S6 function. It requires a current version of Pro Tools to do it.
Right.
But there's nothing you're going to see in the automation window because it works in conjunction with with WS and S4 and S6.
Oh,
So
got it. Okay.
it's under the hood.
Yeah.
You're not going to see it anywhere in Pro Tools Ultimate, and it's not on UControl also.
Yeah, I just looked and I was like, So it's S4,
Yeah.
S6 level.
But it's been a request from a lot of mixers from System 5 and stuff for quite a while.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep. Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much, and appreciate it. And we will continue this. We will continue these from here and try to do them more often. And thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.